when you retire.
So that will be a whole year that you will be missing out of retirement money when you're eligible. Is that it?
That suggested pension suspension, in my opinion, is only will only result into short-term savings, leading into very long-term deficit. Okay, so again, I will urge anyone who are even thinking of doing it that please then come and talk to us before you do that.
Okay, and so we have any other suggestions from you in terms of?
One thing that I would like to touch on, I noticed in the paper on Tuesday, there was an article that talking about having public workers align with the private workers,
yes,
as it pertains to hardship withdrawal from their pension account. I like to say that the Occupational Pension Scheme, the Occupational Pension Act was amended in 2010, August that was, to allow members to withdraw up to 20% of their accumulated balances for certain reasons.
And what would those certain reasons be, Mary Jo?
3 were mentioned. If you have a medical condition and you got to pay for it, and that medical condition is not covered by your insurance policy or company. If you are subject to foreclosure, or if you are not able to pay your rent. And the last one is for education costs for yourself or for anyone in your household.
Okay, so Mary Jo, just hold on to that thought. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be right back after these messages.
You are watching Retirement, a life-changing event, presented by Colonial Pension Services Limited.
Welcome back. We want to get the views and a few comments from our man on the street on retirement and, of course, monies needed to sustain us during retirement.
Thankfully, I do have a pension plan. I think it's mainly due to the fact that pensions is mandatory, basically. I think it's a mandatory. I know it's a mandatory employee benefit. I don't know too much about my pension plan other than the fact that I do attend my annual visits. And I know that as a young investor, I have chosen a riskier portfolio to invest in due to the fact so I can maximize my returns in my younger years. When do I plan to retire? Today I can say that I plan to retire as soon as possible, I hope. But I know, a wiser answer would be when I feel that I'm financially able to stop working and will be able to support myself and perhaps my family. I'm banking on my pension plan, that the one that I contribute 5% to, and my employer contributes 5% to. That would be my main source of income.
Comments panel. So would you like to comment on the things that were mentioned, the statements that were mentioned from our man in the street interview?
One thing I'd like to say, Connie, is the young lady said that she's a young person, and typically young people are not thinking about retirement. This is something that's so far into the future for them. That young lady mentioned something about putting more into her voluntary. And we definitely think that's a very good idea, particularly when you're young. It's never too early to begin saving and planning for retirement. Additional voluntary contributions add to your pension plan. The Act makes provisions for the accumulation and the refund of those voluntary contributions. And they can be made at any time to your pension plan, and they can be withdrawn at any time, either before retirement or in retirement as a lump sum. The Act does not allow you to take your accumulated pension benefits, the mandatory contributions as a lump sum. However, if you've been making additional voluntary contributions, when you reach retirement age, you can take that as a lump sum.
Okay. Lori, I have one important question to ask you. How do you get young people interested, after listening to this Man on the Street interview, how do you get young people interested and motivated to engage in a pension plan? Because they're young, they're full of life, full of energy, and pension, maybe I'm a bit too young to be thinking about that. So how do you engage them in the process?
Well, Connie, at Colonial, we believe in educating our membership, and that is from the youngest to the oldest. We have enrollment sessions where we teach them about the pension plan. We have reviews when we go and see them and provide continuing education. We let them know that this is compulsory. You don't have a choice. If you are 23 and you're working, and you've met the requirements of the pension plan, you must be in the plan. So if you're going to be in the plan, you may as well make the plan work for you and start setting goals and working to attain those goals. Okay. So we work with young people all the time in helping them to set their objectives and goals as they would do for any other reason. As was mentioned earlier, people plan for vacations and they plan for all kinds of things, and we just encourage them to plan for retirement as well.
One thing I'd like to add to that, Connie, is just to actually begin the dialogue. I believe the comment was that, you know, she wasn't sure of her strategy or how she was invested. This is where the dialogue begins. And so we actually invite ones to participate in the planning process. Okay, so it's a partnership. It's not a one-way.
Okay. So is there any type of education out there for people, young people, listening to this young person?
Connie, this national pension scheme is administered by private pension providers. So this is really the main duty of a pension provider to do that. And clearly we're facilitating the whole process, but people have to take responsibility, okay, for their future. So we are here to help them, and we're making sure that, you know, if they are a Colonial pension member, that they are fully educated in their pension plan.
But Mary Jo, you know what you're going to hear now. I'm just about getting through with my expenses. I'm just about meeting my expenses on a monthly basis. You know, Connie, deductions.
It's always a good reason to spend. Pay yourself first. Okay, if you're struggling now and you got a full-time job, what is it going to be when you're in retirement and you have no income? To me, that's clear, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Jonathan, looking at you and looking at Lori, you're young people, I'm sure you are. Was that a compliment, Lori?
So really, I'm not young?
Well, Mary Jo has actually taken the role of leader here, a mentor, so I'm sure that she has offered you some sterling advice in terms of which direction you should be going. So from a personal perspective, where would you lead our viewers in terms of what they should do?
Well, as I mentioned, beginning the dialogue is the first step. I would venture to maybe ask the audience out there, what is your balance of your pension fund? And, you know, besides the debates that are going on right now in the community regarding pensions, typically an individual is not aware of what the balance of their account is, what sort of profile they're in, you know, what sort of investment strategy they have. So I think the first step which we've begun is starting the dialogue, and that's I would say would be the first approach to this.
And Lori?
I concur with what Jonathan said. The other thing that it's important for young people to know is the pension plan is portable. So if you have had employment in the past and you have a pension somewhere and a pension somewhere else, you can consolidate those accumulated balances into one pension plan. And we do encourage people to do that. Very often we get calls from people who don't remember where their pension is. So If you've been working and you've accumulated some pension balance, know what you have. Talk to your pension provider. Go online. As Mary Jo said, take responsibility for your future. It's your future, and if you don't do it, who's going to do it?
That's very true, very true. Anything else, Mary Jo, you'd like to add to that?
Well, in closing, I believe are we there? I will reiterate that how well you retire will depend on how early and how well you plan for retirement, okay? As Lori mentioned earlier, it is a fact that most of us spend more time planning for a vacation, okay, which is going to last us a week, maybe two, than planning for retirement, which is likely to last us 20, 30, maybe 40 years, you know, if we have a good life.
Okay, hold on to that thought. We're going to go to our clip from the man in the street.
I do have a pension plan. It's purely because it's mandatory, and I really actually don't know much about it, to be honest. I have no idea. Hopefully early. Again, I don't really have a plan for that. And that's the same thing. I don't really know. Probably travel if I can afford it.
Okay, so again, we've heard from another young person, and it sounds as if it's a bit, as I mentioned earlier, young people sort of not really feeling that this is the time of their life that they should be taking pension seriously. What can you offer? What advice can you offer in terms of this response?
Well, having been young before,
Now, Mary Jo, I didn't mean to, step on both toes.
I will say that the younger you are, the better off you are when you are really,
Yes.
with regard to pension, because very often you are still at home and working, so you have a bit more disposable income, before getting into the marriage situation, the kid situation, where we're going to have less money to put aside. So the younger you are, I mean, this is the opportunity to set aside as much as you can as voluntary contribution, because those voluntary contributions could always be adjusted. Okay, so you could start with whatever you can and reduce or increase or whatever as you progress through your working life. So young people, it may seem a long way away, but it's not.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to open up the lines later on to our viewers. So what do statistics show?
As far as
Persons facing retirement.
Statistics show that the majority of persons facing retirement only have less than a quarter of the money that they would need to maintain their standard of living in retirement.
In Bermuda?
Generally speaking. The key is that we must make sure that our pension money, that we do not outlive our pension money.
I mean, in all honesty, in all reality, people are complaining now about how expensive it is to retire in Bermuda. So if persons are facing retirement and they only have a quarter of the money that they need to maintain their standard of living, how do you get people to understand that this is a serious investment?
Well, it is a serious investment, Connie. People have to pay more attention to this situation. It is very serious. 276 people turned 65 in 2010. In 2011, it was 700 in Bermuda. Okay?
So every year it's going to
every year it's going to
get higher?
Okay, so it's not, and guess what? They will be collecting from the contributory pension fund, the government, the social insurance. But it's only so much money that this plan can have. And remember, people are having less children, so there are less workers getting into the workforce to actually fund that public pension plan. So,
so with the declining population and less workers being involved in the pension scheme, where do we go from here? What do we do?
Well, we got to put the money aside, and government had the foresight some 12 years ago to introduce that pension scheme that national pension scheme, and people have to understand what it means. It means pay yourself now for later. Okay, in Bermuda, we don't have any obvious source of taxation. You cannot expect the government to do everything for you.
Well, most people do.
So do
they
not,
think the government's going to take care of them
I understand.
when they turn 65.
Absolutely, but they don't always do what government tell them to do. That's another issue. That's another show.
Okay.
Really. So, my final word to anyone would be: do not